Hello and welcome to the Jay Duke Show. We are coming to you live on Horse Network, and it's such a privilege to be doing this show and working with Carly Sparks and all the great crew at the Horse Network, and I want to thank them so much for this opportunity. The Jay Duke Show is presented by Equivault today, and the Equivault.com is your number one source for online lessons. There's over 400 training exercises on there. It gives you a map of your arena, gives you the dimensions, gives you all the materials and supplies that you're going to need to set up the exercise. And there's everything from lead changes to flat work, to hunter derbies, to gymnastics, to working with young horses, to anything you could possibly want to work on is going to be on the Equivault.com. So please check that out and support them. I'm going to bring on my very special guest today. And this young lady has been tearing it up actually for the last few years. She's having a great start to 2021, but she's having just a fantastic resume to her. This is Kristen Vanderveen, and Kristen has over 57 FEI victories, which is an amazing amount of wins at the FEI level. Currently, she is 80th in the world in the computer rankings. She competed in the 2018 World Cup Finals in Paris, and in order to get there, she had to win a 5-star Grand Prix at Live Oak, which secured her place at the World Cup Finals. Just in the last 3 years, Kristen has well over $1 million in earnings. And as I said, she's been tearing it up. Kristen, welcome to the Jay Duke Show.
Thanks, Jay. Great to be here.
Where are you joining us from today?
I am in Wellington right now. Beautiful here.
Nice. And you're competing down there on the circuit currently?
Yes, we have a 5-star coming up this week.
Nice. Okay. And have you qualified for that, or is the qualifier still to come?
Qualifiers still to come. So we'll jog on Tuesday, and then hopefully everything goes our way on Thursday, and we can tear it up on Saturday.
And just so people know with that, is it the top 40 that get to go in the 5-star class? And is that correct? 40 qualify?
Yes, that's correct. And there'll be 5 that are already pre-qualified. So then they'll take the other top 35 out of the Thursday class.
And how many competitors will there be on Thursday trying to crack into this top 40?
I'm not 100%, but my guess would be around 60.
Around 60, nice. So yeah, and obviously the best riders and horses in the world will be there. So very competitive. Best of luck to you on that. How did you get started in the horse world? Where did you start off your career, and how did you get hooked on horses?
Actually, just a funny story. My family didn't do horses, but we had a property that my parents were going to build a house, and the neighbors happened to have horses. So I ended up, I think, annoying those people enough going over there and petting their horses that they sent us to a kind of startup program that was across the road, Kinvara Stables. And we got started there, and I think I caught the bug early, and it never left.
And did you come up, the American system is so well known for the equitation classes and developing people through the USCF medals and the McClay and those sort of things. Did you follow that route, or what was your route to the top?
I think my route was a bit different. So from early on, at the very beginning, when my dad's still very supportive, coming and watching the competitions, but he didn't understand the American system of hunters. He wanted to understand why or why not were we going to win the class. So pretty quickly, we started the jumper route. And I stuck with that the whole way through my career. It was really, I guess, figure it out the hard way. It doesn't have to be pretty, but be effective.
Yes. Yeah.
So I didn't really take the equitation and hunter route so much as straight to the jumpers and figure out why you did win and improve for the next time.
And did you have a lot of coaching when you were younger, or were you kind of just somewhat figuring that out on your own as well, or what was that program like for you?
So through Kinvara, I had a great start, really good basics, and I stuck with the trainer that I'd started with there through most of my younger years. And then when I was about the end of 16 years old, turning 17, we split ways, and I started my business from there. Of course, I try and learn from everybody I love watching clinics. I love watching warm-ups, and there's something you can learn from everybody. But I definitely created a little bit of my own path and used a lot of feeling and trial and error and created a little bit my own system. I never wanted to be a clone of somebody. I wanted to do it a little bit my own and have my own style.
Yeah, and I think you definitely do have your own style, and that's apparent when watching. One of those things is riding fast. You're a very quick rider, and we've had some great people on this show, like Leslie Burr Howard is such a fast rider, and people like that, and talked about how she started off, which was actually having races around her own farm. But watching your style, you do a little bit more of that older following release sometimes, and you're just a little more with the flow of the horses and some of the other younger American stars. So I want to talk about, that aspect to your riding as far as, finding that style and being comfortable and, let's put it this way, what's most important to you? Do you try to adapt to your horses, or do you kind of you say, hey, this is the way Kristen Vanderveen rides, and have the horse adapt to you? Mm-hmm. Or that's a really good training tip. How do you approach that?
Yeah. So when I grew up, although my family has always been very supportive, there's only so much financially that they could do helping us or myself in the higher levels of the sport. So I had to get along with whatever horse I could ride that could jump high enough. So I think that's a little bit also where it started, that I would do anything so that the horse would do its best. So I would try really hard to figure out how the horse went, what made it the most comfortable so that it could perform the best, because that was my only option at the time. It wasn't go get one that suits my style. So I think from a young part of my career, that's where that started. And then for sure now, to me, it's all about getting along with the horse, figuring out which horse, which each horse likes. I think, if they're doing it their own way, they can perform the best to their ability, as opposed to, if I'm trying to get them to suit just the way I want to do it. I think you put a limit on what the horse is really capable of doing if it doesn't suit you exactly right.
Yeah, that's very well said. And I think that's a great philosophy, and that would lend to why you are successful on so many different horses, with that sort of mindset. You are very fast in the jump offs, and it appears that you're pretty much always riding to win, or you're in a position to win the class. How do you approach those jump offs and those speed classes? Is it kind of win or bust type of mentality, or what is the secret to riding so fast?
Yeah, my theory on it is you have to try and learn how to win. So every class, for the most part, I go in trying to win. And if I have an error or a mistake, next time I'm not going to, and the next one I will win. So that's a little bit my thought process on going in the class. If you don't practice to win, you're never going to know how to win when it really matters. So I think it's very important to practice winning, so that when the time comes in a really big class and you want to win, it's not a new concept of how to go fast. You've been training it, your horse is used to it, it doesn't shock them.
And let's talk about that training for those jump offs. One of my favorite stories was competing at the World Cup finals, and Hugo Simon on the wonderful horse ET won it. And he won all three phases because he was just so fast. Nobody could, we couldn't catch him. And a reporter asked him, it's like, Hugo, how are you so good at being so fast? He goes, this is how I ride every day. This is what I do. I ride like this. And so then when I go in the show, I just do the same thing I do at home. Do you practice and train at times to be quick and fast with your horses?
I would say I don't practice so much being quick, as at least my theory in the jump off is be able to hold a big rhythm and never slow down. So I do practice that at home. I'll do a lot of pole work with a very big open canter, and just practice never taking away from the canter. I think when you lose the most time in the ring is when you have to take away. So even sometimes if you start too fast, you end up having to pull and you take away from your rhythm. So I try at home to really work a lot on rhythm and always keeping rhythm the same or moving forward, but never coming backwards.
That's great, great advice. Now you just won 2 big Grand Prix at WEC Ocala, and we are going to show one of those here to our viewers. And I'm going to have you kind of talk the viewers through your round. So we're going to have Carly queue up that class and have you discuss how you won this on Bull Run's Prince of
Peace.
Okay, here we go.
So 1 to 2 was already a tight inside 8, but everybody was able to do that. So to me, that was just staying on track. But then to that Liverpool, I actually did one less stride than everybody, which helped me shape that outside line so I didn't have to slow down too much. And then here, really had to struggle a little bit to get out. So my horse was great there to help me. But then that set us on a pace where I'd never had to take away and was able to just keep running, and it was a real run to the last jump, and even for me it tested my bravery just a little bit.
Yeah, well, that was a very ride for sure, and a very deserving victory. But again, that seems to be your MO. I mean, that is how you ride on a consistent basis. And what a great effort from your horse as well. The effort out of that double combination was exceptional there. And then that, really able to, what's the trick? What would be your advice to riders as far as learning to gallop hard of those verticals? So like the second last fence in that jump off, that was a significant vertical that you galloped hard to, and your horse set up beautifully for. How do you train for that?
Again, what I do at home, I have a lot of horses that aren't super young. They're all middle-aged horses. So I don't do a lot of jumping, but I do a lot of pulls on the ground. So if you can do that big open canter and force yourself to keep the open rhythm, sometimes the horse will even step on the pole behind. But I think that also trains them at the same time to learn how to set their hind end so that I don't have to do it for them. So there's a lot of that that I practice at home so that the horse really learns when we're open cantering, when they start to get close to the jump, that they still need to set their hind end and push off before just kind of getting too flat at the jump.
Right. Yeah. And beautifully done there in that class. Thanks for sharing that video with us. So you started off your own program when you were very young and as a junior, and, you're very well known for your sales business. And I did see that one story on you where you were kind of, should I do this or should I not? What is the success to the sales business, and what are sales like? Let's start with this. What are sales like today in 2021 in the horse business?
Actually, what I've experienced in 2021, as terrible as COVID has been for many aspects, for our sales business, it's actually been quite interesting. It's actually helped my sales. That a lot of business gets done in Europe, but I think I didn't realize how much business was getting done in Europe until COVID hit and nobody can fly over and try the horses. I've sold probably more than I've ever sold this year, just because, there's not the availability of flying to Europe, and people still need horses, and we still have WEF going on, thankfully, and a lot going on. So sales has been great right now, and I think it was just kind of the push for our market that we needed, and I hope that it continues this way and we can continue keeping people buying American horses.
Yeah, that would be helpful. And I have to say, you're about the 20th person in the past month that said they're having their best ever year in sales. And, so that is great to see. Certainly, obviously most everything about COVID is not a good thing, but there are positives out there if you look for them. And speaking of looking for, what is it that you look for in your sales horses? So, you do a really good sales business. What are the criteria for when you're picking sales horses? Talk us through that process.
Yeah, so my kind of niches, or what I've sold the most of that I like selling, are horses that are anywhere from 10 to even up to 14, that are very experienced, that have jumped a minimum of 145. Great if they've jumped meter 50 already, and that have really solid records, so that I can bring them here and know that they're very safe. They have a lot of experience, and that creates a lot of jobs. Most of those horses can go all the way down to 80 centimeters and be safe, where they can also still do a more competitive junior amateur job. it really creates a wide range of people that could buy those horses that they could be very useful to. I look for more bravery than overly careful, just so that sometimes the European horses, when they get to the American system, it's a little bit newer to them. We ride a little bit different than the Europeans do. And some horses, I think, can lose a little bit of their bravery. So I always try and pick a braver horse over something that might get a little bit too careful with a new style of riding.
And where do you get your horses from?
I go all over. I have a few contacts that I've worked with for, oh goodness, like 6, 7, 8 years. But I'm always looking for new places, new contacts. I try and keep all of the doors open. I do a lot of business in Germany, but I've done plenty all over, Belgium, Holland, Ireland, kind of everywhere. But I like having kind of those consistent people that know me, know what I like. So they're always great to fall back on, but keep the doors open with others.
So the model that you've chosen is a little bit different than what many other people do, because a lot of people go the young horse route and then they look to develop those young horses. But in America, young horses are not the most popular. People really kind of like the going and perfect horse. So how did you come to that sales model and business model, saying, hey, I'm just going to go pick up the experienced ones and then bring them over here and match them up with the right riders? What was the inspiration for that?
Well, when you really look at the American business, it seems that for the majority of people, little daughter or son starts riding anywhere from like say 10 to 12 years old. And then it's a 5-year sport for them. So they need a horse that's ready to go. They don't have time to wait and develop and see the future. No, most people are gonna go to college, take a little break, maybe they come back to the sport, maybe they don't. So I found that the younger horses is great for professionals, but in the sales business, it was, the parents are ready to win. They need something that's a little bit more experienced that can get their kid right in the ring and start to move up the ranks a little bit quicker because they're on a little bit of a time frame here before college starts.
Right. Yeah, and that's very smart. But it's so rare. Like I said, it's not something that's commonly seen, especially in a little bit of a smaller and private business. Of course, you'll see that in the huge sales businesses. But for you to come up with that, it's been very successful for you. And what about for yourself? What do you look for in a horse? Again, speaking to the viewers, as far as what's the most important quality in a horse for Kristen Vanderveen?
I really like sensitive horses. It doesn't look like it because a lot of my horses seem very big, but they actually, for the most part, are all very sensitive, even if they are bigger. So I'd say being sensitive is very important to me because I like to ride with a lot of feelings. So I would prefer one that's not cold. And then like everybody, scopy and careful. But again, for my style of riding, because it's faster and maybe a little bit more aggressive, just a little bit different, I would again typically sway towards bravery over carefulness. I'd prefer one with a lot of scope, and then that I could take a little time to work with it with a new training system. And normally they all become quite careful just on their own, and maybe with a quicker style, they start to look out for the jumps.
And do you have a preference, whether it be a gelding, a mare, stallion, or a preference towards a certain breed, or is it just whatever individual horse works best?
Pretty much whatever individual works best. Stallions, I haven't had very much experience. Okay, my probably most well-known horse and my biggest money winner is a stallion, Faustino de Tilly. But he's really actually the first and only stallion I've ever ridden. And we've had a few of our own moments together. So I would say that the stallions could intimidate me a little bit, and I just don't have as much experience with them, but it wouldn't slow me down, I'd say, on buying a good horse. If it was a stallion, I'd be just as interested.
Yeah, no, it is about, I always think it's about finding the right horse. It doesn't matter,
right.
what breed they are, what color they are, what sex they are, but a lot of people
have one. Sorry,
yes.
I have one funny fetish. I really don't like chestnut geldings with a lot of white. Couldn't tell you why, but I know most people are chestnut mares. My weird thing, I always say it's like my American problem when I go to Europe, is I'm chestnut gelding with a lot of white on it. I've had a few that didn't work out so well, and now I'm like, no.
Yeah. No, you're not into Kristen's not into the chrome, so I'll stay away from
No.
that. So in your life, your faith is a big part of everything that you do. And I want to just ask about that and how that affects you with your business and with your riding, and how you use that as a positive to help you out. So just talk a little bit about, your beliefs and how that's a positive.
Yeah, so I am a follower of Jesus. I'm a Christian. And it's kind of the whole essence of who I am and how I make my decisions. So with the horses, it's always been I guess you could say my fallback or my relief of, I feel like the Lord has a plan, and I try and just do the best that I can. And just knowing that at the end of the day, I don't have as much control as I think I do. There's some kind of release of pressure, I guess, in that situation. And then we've started different kind of opportunities for people who maybe did grow up with a faith of some kind, or whatever that may be, Jewish, Christian, Catholic, whatever. Because I find that the horse industry, just with the way it's set up, kind of pushes that down a little bit. We're very busy on the weekends. Saturday, Sunday, our busiest show days. So we started a group on Friday nights where people could come and have that time where we play a message from a non-denominational church, and get to know one another on a different level than just horses. Because there's so many people at the show that I would say I know, but it's more like, well, I recognize them and we say hi every day, but I actually don't know anything about them. We get very comfortable with that. So this is just a bit of an effort to really break down some barriers and get to know people, hear what's going on in their lives, and make it a little bit more deeper impact in what we're doing.
And having that sort of support network is so great, because it's let's be honest, it's a tough business, as we all know.
Yeah.
There's days you're in the dirt, and there's days something goes wrong, and or injuries happen, or all sorts of things in the sport. And so having that support group that you've created and developed, that's just a fantastic thing. And I think I actually always hear about equestrians saying, we'd like to be part of a group that helps one another out, and because
right.
equestrians don't always help one another out. There is something that doesn't happen. So when you mentioned there about it takes a little bit of the pressure off you, so when you're your approach to a class, when you're walking the course, or say before you go in the ring, or even leading up to the class, how does your faith help you with that?
Yeah, so I think I can't speak for everybody, but there's a healthy level of nerves, excitement, however you want to phrase it, and that I would say I get that walking the course, or maybe even leading up or thinking about a class or whatever. And I think if you start to let your emotions get the best of you, you can start to make that round the entire world. If that round doesn't go well, like the whole week is bad, the day is ruined, what are you even doing with your career? And it spirals a little bit out of control. And that's just, I think, unhealthy and too much, especially like you said, for our sport is filled with up and downs, and you need to be able to handle that. So my faith, having that for me is just, I believe that God has a plan. And I believe that, we all want to feel like we're in control of everything. We love being control freaks, as do I. But that at the end of the day, I'm not that powerful. I can go out there, I will do the best I can. But at the end of the day, I do believe that God is in control of what happens, and that he has a plan for me. So if it didn't go well, it's not the end of the world. Like, there's another class, there's another day, or there's a whole nother career or another path, whichever way I'm being led. And that just, to me, that just takes the pressure off of feeling like I have to know what to show and when to show, where I'm going with my career all of the time, and just leave that in the Lord's hands a bit.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And let's talk about your plans. Are you a goal setter? Like, do you set plans out for yourself and your horses, say at the start of the year as the year goes on? Or are you looking at that sort of plan for each one of your horses, or how do you approach how you're going to develop Kristen Vanderveen's career?
So I would actually say goal setting is not one of my strengths. My dad is an amazing goal setter. So I think that part of me drives him a little bit crazy, but we level each other off because he will challenge me a little bit on that. Especially with COVID, it's been recently a little bit hard to set goals. But even before that, it's still not one of my strengths. I always find that since all of my horses are for sale, it gets a little bit challenging to envision too aggressively where exactly the future is going, because they come and they go a little bit. So my big goals are always do the best I can with each horse and try and get the most out of each horse. Whether that is winning the 140 or whether that's winning the 5 stars. Try and really understand each horse the best you can and do the best you can with it, are kind of like big general goals. And then in the short term, I think like every rider, I would, I'd love to go to World Cup finals again. It was great to get the experience the first time, and I'd love to do that again. I don't know, I can't envision how it's happening this year, but maybe. And then, down the road, if the Olympics were possible, I would love to do it. But those goals aren't so important to me that I would sacrifice the program of my horses to accomplish them, if that makes sense. I'm really focused on doing what's best for the horses that I have. And if those goals can line up with the program for these horses, I would really love to do it.
Yeah. So putting the horse first, that's a great concept.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people say that, but I think not everyone does that. But definitely in your case, you can see that with the consistent results you have, and the fact your horses get sold and they go on to great careers as well with their people. And so, putting the horsemanship first is such a key. And yeah, I was curious if you had hopes. You've done the one major championship with the World Cup finals, and if you were looking to hopefully get back to another championships. But you're right, it is very difficult. And how do you deal with the emotional part of selling a really good horse? So let's say, and this horse, I'm sure you've had to do this, you've got a horse that you think, oh, this is a special horse. This one could ride for Team USA. This one could have a shot to go to the Olympics. And of course it's for sale because that's the business. How do you, how do you cope with that, and how do you manage that emotionally?
Yeah, it's always tough, especially when like a real offer comes in on the horse, and it's like, But what I kind of go back is I kind of review my history, and every year I seem to be able to find or be blessed with kind of the next best horse. They just show up at the right time. And each year I felt that the horses have gotten even better. At first it was this horse, La Bamba was my best horse. And then a really big offer came in and she was sold back to Europe. But then came in Eternal, and then kind of the same thing. And then that horse won a bunch of Grand Prix, but then a big offer came in on him. So he was gone. But then Faustino came in and he seemed even better, and he's won even more. And I think Faustino will stay just because we're going to use him as a breeding stallion. But then when that kind of decided that he's getting older, then this new horse Risen has come through, and now there's been some talk of selling that one. And I try and just level myself with realizing that the Lord's always provided me with new good horses. There's always another horse. There's so many horses. And try and just keep the business in perspective, that without selling them and without the money, there's no horses. This is your last shot. And I also have investors on most of the horses. So that's it keeps it all in perspective too, that I have a responsibility to them. They buy the horses as investment, not as sponsorship. So, if they're getting good offers, I need to take it seriously and talk with them and sell the horse for them to make money. And then maybe one day somebody will come behind me that doesn't want to sell the horses or they want Olympic medals. That would be great and exciting. But for right now, my people like making money.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, because it is such a big part of the industry as well, and especially for the younger riders like yourself, balancing your dreams with reality is
Right.
that's not an easy thing to do. So kudos to you and congratulations on being so successful at that. If you could ride any horse from the past to the present, it's not one of your own. You can't pick a Kristen Vanderveen horse. But any horse you get to ride in one class, who is it?
So I want to say Milton off the top of my head, but not because I know him super well, but I watch all of his tribute videos. And I don't know if it's because I have a thing for gray horses, but I love the tribute videos of him, and it seems like such a special horse. So that was the first horse that came to mind.
Well, Milton is definitely. I grew up, at that time and watching Milton live at the horse shows, and he was always a fan favorite, and he and Big Ben would have these back and forth battles with Whitaker and Miller, and it was just amazing to watch, and the fans were so into it. And I think nowadays actually it's a little harder for the fans because there's so many great horses out there.
I know.
And in those days, there in like the 80s and the early 90s, Milton and Big Ben, of course, would be at the top today as well, but they'd have company amongst 20 other horses. And at that point, they just stood out because they were so incredible. And so, yeah, definitely that's an excellent choice. I think anybody that grew up in the 80s would say Milton would be their pick. Interesting story about that horse is he was not very good as a young horse. And
Oh,
in
really?
fact, when John first got him, he couldn't foal. And John was like, "What is wrong with this horse?" And he had to learn how to ride him. And just like you were saying earlier, to adjust to the horse, and that is such a key thing. And I think such an important thing to explain to all the professionals out there and all the juniors and amateurs is adjust to your horse. And when you do that, you never know what can happen. You might end up with another Milton when you adapt to their style. So that's a great pick. Kristen, thank you so much for joining us today on the Jay Duke Show on Horse Network. It's really been a pleasure. Everyone is cheering for you, and you're such a great competitor and such a great young lady. So thank you so much, and best of luck in the future.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Next week, please join us, as there's this guy from Britain coming on. You might have heard of him. He's won a few things. His name's Nick Skelton. He's going to be our guest next week on the Jay Duke Show on Horse Network. So please join us for that episode. I'm very excited to talk with the great Nick. And I want to thank the Equivault.com for sponsoring the show and bringing us Kristen Vanderveen live and getting to know her better. Equivault.com, your place for all your online resources for all of your training needs. So check them out as soon as possible and help them. I want to thank Carly Sparks, our producer behind the scenes, and Horse Network for making this possible. And as always, ride safely and respect the horse. Have a great day.